Hey there, welcome back. Shubham this side. Now in this lecture, let us talk about what is an API and lot more things regarding theory as well as some practical concept. Now this lecture is not important, but if you are a beginner, I strongly recommend to follow this lecture properly. We are going to discuss about lot of concepts that are not important for our project or this course, but they are important in general for your knowledge as a developer. The first thing is, what is API? So API is basically application programming interface. Okay, this is a full form. You will find tons of definition online. But what API is? In simple word, API is a middleman. So whenever we have different projects, now these projects can be different application. Whenever we have different application, we need something to connect both of them. And to connect both of them, we have API. Now I'm going to take general example so you will have better understanding of each concept. Suppose you are using Uber, and if you are aware about this, Uber utilizes maps, Google Maps. How they are connected? They are connected through APIs. That's where this middleman come into picture. Now this middleman is important, this API part is important. This middleman not only help us to connect two different projects, two different separate projects. Here, if I talk about Uber as well as Google Map, these two are two different projects. But this API also help us to work as a middleman for our own application. Maybe we have a website and a mobile app. So if we want to connect both of them, we can utilize this through API. There are a lot of theory that we are going to talk about, but this is a basic example or a basic definition to API. And I strongly recommend everyone to learn about this, that refer API as the middleman. Now the formal definition will help you to understand about its full form as well as that how this work as a middleman between two applications to talk with each other. So this is a basic definition. Now the next thing is some real life example. So till now you understood, okay, this is a middleman, but how I can generalize this? Let's take a real life example with restaurants. So if you have ever visited a restaurant, maybe for dinner, for lunch, you are basically the client. So you are the client, you are going to send some order for food, or you are going to order something for lunch, dinner, whatever you want. And then we have some kitchen where food is cooked. So we are going to call this as server. So we have this kitchen, or you can call this as server. Now API is actually our waiter or someone who is the middleman. API is going to take your request, send this request, send this data. Okay, you ordered some soup, maybe you ordered something else, and you send this request to your API. Now API is going to take this request to the kitchen, and then kitchen is going to prepare your food, send the food with API in the form of a response, and then API get back to you and bring you the food. Then API maybe just get into the kitchen server, get the bill, bring the bill to you, take the money from you, get back to kitchen. So all of this data, all of this talking, all of this transition is done between client and server through API. That is our middleman. I know this is a silly example, pretty basic example, but if you are a beginner, this example is going to help you a lot to generalize things in future also. So this is one part, this is the basic part of API, that it's a middleman that help us to connect two projects, two application or two services. But what type of API we have? So at currently we have three type of API. The first one is private, the second one is partnered, and the third one is public. Now all three are important, and if you are working on a big business, if you are working on a big company, chances are you are going to work on all of three. And I'm going to take three examples as well for three different sections. The first one is private. Now what exactly is private API? I will be talking about this in a minute, but just refer this within organization. The second thing is partner API. Now when we design some content, when we design API specifically for our business partners, specifically maybe for certain groups, At that point of time, we refer to as partner API. You can call this as business. Now the third one is public API. So when everyone is allowed to register as a user and access the content, access the data, this is known as public API. So any third party application is allowed to register and access this. And I will take example of all three. Just remember we have three types: private, partner and public. Let's talk about private. So if I jump onto the private API, suppose I have my own logics, I have created all the functions, all my requirement, and I have a proper database, I have user registered. Initially what I did is I created this backend with my Django REST framework. Let me call this as DRF, Django REST framework. Python, Django, everything is used, and maybe I'm using database as SQLite or maybe MySQL. So everything is working fine. Now here I'm going to create a website. This website is connected to my backend and this is my database. Everything is working fine. But maybe I want to create a desktop application or maybe Android application or iOS application. Now with these type of requirement, we don't create backend again and again for each requirement. What we do is we utilize our API. At currently our website is connected with our backend through this API. Similarly, we will follow with our iOS app, with our Android app, and with our desktop application. What we did is we create our API inside our own organization and then we connected them according to our requirement. There are chances that our Android application is in React Native and maybe our desktop application is using Electron or maybe something else for our iOS application, maybe Flutter. So in this way, we have created backend with the help of Python, Django and Django REST framework. We are using a database, but for different application, we created different front ends. So in this way, we are only using single backend and through API we are connected. Now I know at this point of time you might not understand this, but as we move forward with the course you will realize how we are going to utilize API. Now there are few important things that you need to understand. When we talk about this API connection, we follow one single language which is JSON. Either you can use XML or JSON to send request as well as response. So we are going to follow JSON. In this way, we have a particular format of every single thing. Suppose we have this user who registered through website and then try to log in through Android application. They will still have access because our database is same, our backend is same. So every logic is same, only the front end part is different. So what usually happen is they send a request, they get a response. Now with response, they also get few other things. They get status code, they get formatting and all the other things that we are sending. We'll be talking about them later. So either we use JSON or XML. We are going to follow JSON, so don't worry. So this was example of private. Why? Suppose I created my own website, shubhamsharda.com or maybe unwildlearning.com. I created my website, I created my iOS app, Android app, desktop application. Everything is within this particular organization and no third party application, no other application can access this API. But if I talk about business partner API, that is partner API, what usually happen is they design few specific feature according to requirement. So if you just jump onto Prime Videos, they have tie up with IMDb to show the rating of each individual movie. Maybe in future Netflix come up and they try to connect with IMDb, they can do that. If you search about IMDb API and scroll down a bit, just jump here, you will realize that not everyone can access this API. This is not free API, you have to connect with them on their official mail. They will have some business proposal, they will get your details, and if they approve, the pricing is set, then they are going to approve according to your requirement. So the API is specifically for this particular business. At currently, IMDb is being utilized by Prime Videos. Maybe in future Netflix tries to connect with them, they will be happy to provide their service to Netflix or maybe any other service. So that's how business API work. It's not public. Only selected users, selected business partner can access it. Now the other thing is, IMDb also have their own private APIs, but we cannot have information about it. So remember that. Let's jump on to the next example, that is third-party API. Now third-party API are pretty common. You can search about this Open Weather Map API, maybe CoinMarketCap API to get information about cryptocurrency. What usually happen is with third-party API, maybe this is your own website and this is third-party application. So all you have to do is first register on them. So they will have a registration process. Then they will have some free services. Maybe free service for 30 days or maybe you have limited service each day. So they have some free options to utilize and they also have some paid option. So maybe you are a heavy user right now. You can pay and get extra services. These APIs are open for all. All you have to do is register, provide your email, and then you can access them. Two most common right now for project development purpose, Open Weather Map API that provide you access to weather and CoinMarketCap API that provide you access to cryptocurrency data. So these are public available API, anyone can register and have access to them. So if I jump back to my topic, which is private, partner as well as public. A good example of partner is Instagram API. Not everyone can access it, but if you have a business, you can send a request to them. They will get you verified, ask all the use case, where you are going to use Instagram API, how you are going to use, and a lot other details. Once they approve, you can utilize their API. The same follows with Facebook, other big companies if you want to partner. Maybe Uber as well as Google Maps also have some partnershiping, and that's how they are working. Since you can see that Uber is totally dependent on Google Maps, there are chances they both have partnered, customized according to Uber requirement or any other cab service requirement, delivery requirement. So it can be utilized by them properly and have more customization according to Uber end. So that's the three APIs. We are going to focus on this private one. If you understand this, you can just work on these two very easily. And make sure you understand about this private example because this is pretty important for you to understand how the web architecture of API work. We have one single backend. Let me take any example website, maybe Amazon. So this is Amazon. They have a single backend, they have their own database, and what they did is they have multiple APIs to connect different services. Now their API can be private to connect their web application with backend, their iOS application with backend, Android with backend. Then they have some business APIs to connect different services. Maybe Amazon is connected with Prime Videos, so that can be a business API. Maybe Amazon can be connected with a third-party application to show their product, or for referrals, for affiliate. So that can be a partnership. And then Amazon, they have their own public APIs to show their product. So that's how a big application utilize all three type of API. I hope you got the idea. Just make sure you understand the private one properly. Remember, all the four API type are same, but how they use is different from the front end. They have a particular format to send a request as well as to get a response. So we work with request as well as response. Request is sent by the front end and then our backend send a response. So maybe if you are working on a IMDb clone, maybe we create movie list. So request is sent by a front end that get me all the movies starting with S. That's a request from front end. In our backend, in our database, we search about all the movies that start with S and then we send a response. Our request is in the form of JSON and our response will be in the form of JSON itself. So sometimes we are going to take some data. Maybe at the time of registration, we are going to take username, email, password. So we are going to get them in the form of JSON. And maybe we are going to return some token. We will be sending them in the form of JSON. That's how it is going to work. Why JSON? because this is the common language that we are working with all of them. That means we are following this common middleman which is same for our Android, for iOS, for web, as well as for our desktop application. That's the basic thing. Now I know these things can be basics for someone who has a bit of experience, but for new students this is pretty important. Now let's talk about the other thing, which is consumer as well as provider. So suppose you created an affiliate website. Don't worry, you don't need to understand anything about affiliate, but just think you created an e-commerce website to show all the products. So this is your website and you are trying to show all the mobile phones. So you get data from Amazon API, you get data from eBay, and you also get data from Flipkart. These are all the common websites all over the world. So you have Amazon, you have eBay, you have Flipkart. All of them have provided you API and they are sending you data regarding mobile. And this is your website. All you do is you get data from all of them and show on your website. So the common thing that you need to understand is at this point of time you are consumer and all of them are provider. That means they are providing you all the information, they are providing you all the details, and you are the consumer, you are getting information from them. The other important thing is they have their own set of documentation. That means each one of them provide a proper format to you. So maybe every one of them is sending response in the form of JSON, but they will share a proper format that okay, in a single request we will only share 20 products, maybe 30 products with eBay, maybe 10 products with Flipkart. So they have their own documentation and they have their own formatting that we will also discuss with our project. So you are consumer and they are provider. That's the first basic thing. The next thing is throughout the project our aim is to become a provider so that other people can consume our API. Now this one is easy. To become a consumer is easy. All of them are providing their own API. We can just directly go, register there, access their API, get response on our own website. But to create a API from our end is going to be the difficult part. And that's how we are going to work with Django REST Framework. To consume a API, we don't need any REST framework. We don't need any specific framework. But to create an API, we need to understand a lot of things. We will be talking about serialization, permissions, and lot other things. So the aim of this course is to understand how to be a provider. That means you can create an API and then this API can be utilized by your web application, iOS, Android, or your desktop application. That means we will understand this particular part. How to create API. Then later on you can integrate your APIs to create front-end, iOS, Android or desktop application. So we are going to become a provider. Now once that is done, your API is ready. You can then connect with other website also, because connecting with your own website from the front end is exactly almost the same way with any other website. Only the authentication part will be different. Everything else will remain same. We will discuss about this during the course. So that's the first motive. The second thing we need to discuss is the basics of URL, or maybe I can call this as URL structure. We are going to talk about this again in the next lecture, but let's talk about basics right now. So we are going to work with IMDb clone. That means we are going to work with multiple URLs for movie list, for individual movie information, about reviews, then we have login, register. So we are going to work with multiple links. Now there are few points that we need to understand. The first thing is with REST framework, we follow a URL structure. If we are going to get complete list of our movies, then we are going to follow either /movies or maybe movies/list, any one of them. And if we want to work with individual element, that means movies/ then we are going to have that ID. So this 1 to 7 can be referred towards any particular movie. It can be Spider-Man, Superman or any other movie. So this is movie ID. So this is going to give us the complete movie list. That means all element. and this is going to give us individual element. Then we have slash reviews. That means for this individual movie, I need to get all the reviews. So if this is Spider-Man, then I'm going to get all the reviews regarding this particular movie. So this is going to return us list about this particular movie. Then we have this parameter limit equals to 20. That means I need only 20 reviews for this movie. So we are going to design these structure of URLs, and these are pretty important, especially this one and this one. Now the next thing is, when we are working with multiple URLs, we have some common part and some uncommon part. So the common part is known as base URL. So this is the common part here till this point. So this is the common part and we call this as base URL. And then this remaining part, this part is known as endpoint. So if I mark this, this is our endpoint. So if I say what is the endpoint to get complete movie list, this is going to be this one. So slash movies. And if I talk about the endpoint to get individual element, then it is going to be this one. Slash movies slash then the individual element ID. So this is basic structure that you should be informed about. So we have endpoint and then we have base URL and then we have these type of structure. We will be talking about this again in the next lecture to talk about different type of methods that we are going to work. This lecture was specifically dedicated to API and some basic concept. API is middlemen that help us to connect either two different projects or our own project, that is our front end as well as back end, or maybe two different projects like Uber as well as Google Map. So there are a lot of possibilities. You can only understand things when we start implementing. I hope this lecture was helpful and now you have basic idea about API. The important thing that you need to understand is we send a request, we get some response, everything is done in the form of a single particular language, which is JSON, that we are going to utilize to communicate, or you can use XML. JSON is the most common one. The other thing you need to understand is about the endpoints, which is pretty important. So if I say I need to send a request for login, I'm going to send a request to this endpoint. For registration, I'm going to send a request to this endpoint. So these things are important. The next thing is, whenever we work with responses, we follow codes, HTTP codes. I will be discussing about these 2 or 3 factors in the next lecture to understand our status code as well as the architecture. I hope this basic lecture was helpful. Thank you for following and I see you guys in the next one.